The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital flickered lazily, their pale glow washing over the sterile corridors with a kind of cold indifference. Room 412 was tucked at the end of a quiet hallway, away from the hum of the emergency wing. In it, Ethan Carrington, 27, sat in his wheelchair, staring blankly at the ceiling. Life had once been easy for him. He had been born into wealth, the kind of privilege that could open doors and close them at a whim. But one catastrophic car accident had turned his body into a cage. The lower half of his life was no longer his own. He could not walk. He could barely lift his arms without assistance. And every day, he felt the invisible weight of people judging him, sneering behind polite smiles. It wasn't just strangers who inflicted pain. It was the people entrusted to help him. Nurses, supposed caretakers, had become his tormentors. The cruel irony of it all was that their jabs were always disguised as humor. Watch him struggle again. Tanya whispered to her colleague, smirking. It's like he's doing it on purpose, pathetic. Her colleague snickered, shaking her head. I know, right? He calls for help for everything. He can't even feed himself. Some people are just helpless. Ethan had heard it all. He had heard them laugh when he tried to reach for the water on his tray, heard the soft snickers behind his back when he asked for assistance. He had perfected the art of smiling, of nodding politely, while inside, his chest tightened with humiliation and frustration. He wanted to scream. He wanted to lash out, but he didn't. Instead, he withdrew further into himself, retreating behind the walls of stoicism he had built after the accident. Then came Lily. Lily, with her wide, curious eyes and golden, brown hair pulled into a messy braid, entered his world like sunlight breaking through clouds. She was 7 years old, visiting the hospital for her mother's routine checkup. Unlike other children who whimpered at the sight of medical machines or recoiled from hospital staff in their crisp uniforms, Lily was fearless. When she saw Ethan's wheelchair, she didn't shrink away. She approached him with a quiet determination, tilting her head as if assessing a puzzle that needed solving. Hi, she said softly, sitting down in the chair beside his bed. What's your name? Ethan blinked, startled. Visitors usually avoided him. Most adults didn't know how to talk to someone who couldn't stand on their own feet. But Lily's voice carried no pity, no fear, just genuine curiosity. Ethan, he whispered. Ethan, she repeated, tasting the word. Then, after a pause, she asked the question that would change everything. Why do the people here laugh at you? It was a simple question. Yet it cut through Ethan's carefully constructed defenses. He didn't know what to say. How could he explain the daily torment without sounding bitter? But Lily's small eyes were unflinching, waiting for the truth. They think I'm weak, he admitted, his voice shaking. They think because I'm like this, I'm less than. Lily frowned. Less, she echoed. Do you have to be strong to be important? Ethan shook his head, unsure how to answer. I guess no. But they don't see it that way. They don't see me at all. Lily reached out and grasped his hand, her tiny fingers wrapping around his like a lifeline. I see it. I see everything. You're not weak. You're brave. The words hit him like a tidal wave. No one had ever seen him like that. Not his friends, not his family, not the nurses who mocked him daily. Lily had done what adults had failed to do. She had looked past the wheelchair, past the paralysis, and straight into his soul. The following morning, Ethan noticed subtle changes. The nurses, who had once whispered cruel jokes, now looked uneasy when they passed his room. They avoided glances, their laughter conspicuously absent. Ethan didn't understand until Lily returned. She had spoken to them, boldly. You shouldn't laugh at people who can't help themselves, she said, her arms crossed with the authority only a child possessed. You don't know what they're going through. You should be helping them, not hurting them. The nurses froze. For a moment, time seemed to stop. A 7-year-old had exposed the harshness of their cruelty, and the weight of their guilt was sudden and unavoidable. Tanya, the ringleader of the mockery, lowered her eyes. I didn't mean, she began, her voice faltering. You did, Lily interrupted gently. And that matters. But you can still choose to do the right thing. From that day forward, Ethan's world began to shift. The staff who had once mocked him now treated him with care and patience. They spoke to him respectfully, listened to his concerns, and most importantly, acknowledged his humanity. But it wasn't just the nurses who were affected. Something within Ethan changed. For the first time since his accident, he felt a flicker of dignity returning. He began to engage with the hospital in ways he hadn't in years. Helping in the library, reading to sick children, offering companionship to elderly patients. And always, Lily was there, her presence a constant reminder that kindness could transcend any barrier. Yet the story was far from over. One afternoon, a visitor arrived at St. Mary's, a man in an impeccably tailored suit who exuded authority and quiet wealth. He introduced himself as Mr. Henry Albright, a lawyer representing the Carrington family. Ethan's father was dying, and the presence of the man set off a chain of events that no one could have anticipated. As the hospital staff scurried to accommodate Mr. Albright, Lily sat beside Ethan, sensing his tension. "Are you afraid of him?" she asked. Ethan laughed bitterly. "Afraid? I'm used to people who see me as a burden. But him, he sees me differently. He expects everything from me: money, power, compliance. And I don't know if I can live up to that." Lily shook her head. "You don't have to be anyone's idea of perfect. You just have to be you. That's enough." Her words echoed through him, and in that moment, Ethan realized something profound. True strength wasn't measured by the ability to walk or lift a tray. It was measured by resilience, courage, and the capacity to give and receive love. Days passed, and the hospital became a place of subtle miracles. Patients, once afraid of their conditions, found courage in Ethan's example. Staff who had lost touch with their calling rediscovered empathy. And through it all, Lily's voice remained a quiet, persistent light. Then came the turning point, the moment when the full weight of Lily's courage revealed itself. One evening, a nurse attempted, as usual, to belittle Ethan in the hallway. But this time, Lily intervened. She stood between him and the adult, small but unyielding. "Stop," she said firmly. "You don't get to laugh at him. You don't know what he's been through. You don't know what he fights for every single day." The nurse froze, caught in a storm she hadn't anticipated. Others watched silently, realizing that this small child had revealed a truth they had all been avoiding. Strength is invisible to the eye, and courage doesn't wear a uniform or come with wealth. Ethan looked at Lily, tears threatening to spill over. "Thank you," he whispered, voice trembling. "No," she said with a small shake of her head. "Thank you for showing me what real bravery looks like." From that day forward, room 412 was transformed. The wheelchair was no longer a symbol of limitation. It was a throne of resilience. Laughter was no longer mockery but joy. And kindness became contagious, spreading from patient to nurse to visitor, a ripple effect that no one could have predicted. Ethan knew that he would never forget Lily, the little girl who had shown him that true humanity is not measured by the body, but by the heart. And in her presence, he rediscovered a world that he had thought was lost forever, a world of empathy, hope, and unconditional love. For Ethan, the hospital was no longer a place of suffering. It had become a sanctuary of transformation, a place where the smallest voice could inspire the greatest change, and where even the most broken could find a path to strength. And through it all, Lily's smile was the compass guiding him toward it,